now call the June 22nd, 2021 Plan Commission order. Roll call, please.
Sullivan here.
Rillo here.
Lorick here. Kavich here.
Muzikowski here.
Oldani here.
Seifert here.
We're here.
Commissioner Chandler.
Chandler here.
I know she acknowledged her presence. Thank you. That will get us to item 3, approval of minutes of June 8th, 2021. Commissioners, if you'd all take a look, please. When you are satisfied there's no errors, omissions, discussion, or questions, we'll entertain a motion.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of June 8th, 2021.
Muzikowski will second.
Roll call, starting with Commissioner Sullivan.
Sullivan, aye.
Rillo, aye.
Lorick, aye. Kavich, aye.
Muzikowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, we got you. A little quiet, but we got you. So I don't know if it's your volume or your microphone chassis, so kind of work on it. Item 4, significant common council actions. Carrie?
Council approved an ordinance approving a conditional use permit amendment to allow 24/7 operations on a portion of the property at 561 West College Avenue. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And just to follow our agenda, item 5 is Board of Housing and Zoning Appeal actions. Carrie?
There were none.
Thank you. And item 6 is notification that our quarterly Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Commission actions will be presented at the July 13th, 2021 meeting. And please note that Commissioner Hanna is now present for the minutes. Item 7 is our first public hearing, and that is a sign appeal for a sign at Blains Farm and Fleet for channel letters on the side of the west elevation on the building at 501 West Rawson Avenue. Carrie, if you'd please read that in. Lori,
will
please read that in. Sorry.
Sure. City of Oak Creek, published May 26, 2021. City of Oak Creek, notice of public hearing before the Plan Commission. This meeting will be held both in person and by video conference. Persons wishing to participate in the video conference must register at the website prior to the meeting. The video conference will begin at 5:55 p.m. to allow participants to log in. Persons who wish to view the meeting live without participating may visit the City of Oak Creek YouTube page at the website provided. Persons requiring other reasonable accommodations may contact the city at 414-766-7000. Requests should be made as far in advance as possible, preferably a minimum of 48 hours. This is a public hearing for a sign appeal to be held on June 22nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. in the Common Council chambers and via Zoom. The appellant is Dave Wynn from Blains Farm and Fleet. Text key number is 765-9046-000. The property location is 501 West Rawson Avenue. The request is for a variance from section 17.0706I1, which states that single and 2-tenant office, retail, or manufacturing buildings shall be permitted 1 wall sign per tenant per street frontage. If granted, the variance would allow the applicant to install 2 illuminated channel letter wall signs at 28 feet, 8 1/4 inch, and 1 foot by 4 inches, and 18 foot by 10 inches by 10 inches on the west elevation of the building. The zoning of this property is B4, conditional use, highway business district, conforming condition use. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present. Dated this 18th day of May 2021. Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin. Mayor Dan Bukevich. This is a public hearing. All those wishing to speak, please step up to the podium, or for those participating remotely, press *9 on your phone to notify the moderator that you'd like to be unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record and address all questions and comments to the Plan Commission. This hearing is now open.
Thank you, Lori. My apologies if there's anybody wishing to speak on the public hearing tonight or any other matter that we're taking up tonight. Please go to the board on my left, your right. There are forms there. We need them filled out with your name and address, and we need that for the minutes of the record going forward. So as Lori stated, this is a public hearing. We will make the first call regarding the sign at Blains Farm and Fleet at 501 West Rawson Avenue. Second call. Anybody wishing to speak? Third and final call. Okay, we will now close the public hearing. And is anybody, nobody's really out there looking to speak on the sign, ma'am?
That's what I wanted to know. Is it strictly the sign?
What's that?
Was this strictly related to the sign?
Strictly the sign. We're on item 7, ma'am. Okay. We'll now close the public hearing and we'll go to consideration of that sign appeal submitted by Blains Farm and Fleet. So Lori, if you would, give us a narrative.
Sure, this is a pretty simple, straightforward sign request. The request is for 2 illuminated channel letter wall signs with the dimensions provided on the west elevation. One's for the service center entrance, so it will be more in the northwest corner, and then the tire and service center sign, which will be located above the garage door.
Okay. Pretty straightforward. Everybody has it in their packet. We'll go to commission for questions. We'll start with Commissioner Hanna.
I have no question.
Okay, Commissioner Sullivan,
I have nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Carrillo,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Lorick.
No questions. I don't see any issues with this. It seems appropriate for the building type, and their rationale for the signs and placing them where they want to place them is appropriate to me.
Okay. Commissioner Guzekowski,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner O'Dani,
I have nothing.
Commissioner Seibert,
No comment.
and Commissioner Chandler.
Yes, I have a question for the applicant. Can you hear me?
You're very faint. I know you have a question. Is the applicant with us? Do we have a representative from Blains? Maybe, possibly online. So you can ask your question, and if not, maybe staff can accommodate the answer.
For your assistance, I typed it in the chat. Can you hear me okay?
Can we check? We can hardly hear you.
So my question is for the applicant, and just a quick question on the reasoning for 2 signs versus 1.
Sure. One is to indicate, just to help out since the applicant isn't available. One is to indicate the location where you can enter into the building for the tire and service center. And the other one is to indicate where the garage door is for that same tire and service center.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. I have no further questions. I find it appropriate as well. There's no further discussion. We'll do a motion on 7A, 7B. I'm sorry, 8A.
Seeker moves that the planning commission approves a sign variance allowing the installation of 2 illuminated channel letter wall signs, 28 feet by 8¼ inches, and 18 feet, 10 inches by 10 inches on the west elevation on the building located at 501 West Rawson Avenue.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call, beginning with Commissioner Carrillo, please.
Carrillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Donnie, aye. Seeker, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Thank you very much. That will get us to item 8B. That is consideration of a temporary use permit to review a request for a temporary use permit submitted by Charlie DeWitt, Jim Dandies, for an outdoor event series in temporary outdoor event space, shipping container bar, elevated patio and ground level patio space, concert stage, and temporary parking on the properties at 8868 and 8900 South 27th Street. Lori?
We are once again throwing you off, Mayor. I apologize.
No, you're good.
So as you said, this is a temporary use permit for Jim Dandies. The current zoning for this property is B4 Highway Business. The proposal is for outdoor event series along with a temporary outdoor event space that would include a shipping container bar with an elevated patio above it, extended ground level patio space, a concert stage, and then temporary parking area as well. Now, it's important to note that the outdoor music and event space is not a permitted use in the B4 district, and that the outdoor event space is only allowed as a temporary use through Plan Commission approval. The Plan Commission submittal that we received contained a proposed site plan, preliminary rendering of the shipping container bar, and a schedule of the concert series, along with 3 letters of support. No narrative was supplied for this application. However, the city clerk and I had spoke to the applicant about his plans for the property on May 25th, 2021, prior to his submittal, which helped us fill in some of the blanks. I'm hoping that the applicant will be with us to confirm some of the things that we were discussed on the 25th. The next slide is the for the proposed shipping container. Oh, I'm sorry, I think we're a little bit off. We have the site plan, which shows the concert stage, shipping container bar, and temporary parking, which will be located on 68 South 27th Street. Written authorization for Jim Dandy to use this property was not included in the Plan Commission submittal. And I apologize, let me just quit. The proposed site plan is seen on the left of your screen. The extended patio is not shown on the site plan, but we are aware that it has been in use for over a year. The proposed bar space is 20 feet in length. Sorry. No setbacks have been provided for any of the elements included in this plan. However, the proposed location shown on the site plan indicates that this will be located in a special flood hazard area. Now, this shipping container is not designed to allow for the automatic entry of floodwaters and may not be placed in a flood hazard area. The concert stage is a temporary structure and may only remain in the flood hazard area for a maximum of 48 hours. Bear with us as we go through technical issues here. The applicant provided the shown renderings of the north and south elevation of the shipping container bar and elevated patio space as shown on your screen. The proposed bar will be constructed out of an 8.5 foot by 40 foot shipping container. The shipping container exceeds the size allowed by code for temporary portable storage structures. Therefore, it shall be considered a permanent structure for the purpose of review and permitting. The metal exterior of the shipping container does not meet building material code requirements as well. 4 garage doors will be placed on the south elevation of the container to allow access to the bar and the seating space inside. An access door will be placed on the south elevation of the shipping container, and 2 additional garage doors will be placed there as well. The proposed bar space is 20 feet in length and approximately 80 inches deep, leaving an additional 20 feet of interior space for table seating. The bar has electrical service, but no running water. Lighting has been placed inside the bar, and it appears that they may be installed above the garage doors as well. No lighting was shown or indicated for the elevated patio space. The proposal shows a staircase to be built adjacent to the shipping container to access the elevated patio space. The elevated patio, which will be used for additional dining space, spans the entirety of the shipping container and will have railings around the periphery. The container has been painted red and blue with blue trim, and then it has white garage doors. It stands out. The concert stage, no dimensions, setbacks, or plans were supplied for the concert stage. I've viewed it several times, and it appears that the dimensions of the stage are approximately 20 feet by 15 feet. The site plan includes temporary parking. The parking on 8868 South 27th Street will allow for additional 64 standard and 2 handicap parking spaces. And the 8900 South 27th Street will have 37 standard and 7 handicap parking spaces. No dimensions have been provided for the proposed parking stalls on either property or the drive lanes on 8900 South 27th Street. The 18-foot wide drive lane indicated on 8868 South 27th Street does not meet code and would have to be increased to 20 feet to meet access for our emergency vehicles. At the time the staff report was written, the parking lot of 8868 South 27th Street had not been striped to accommodate these additional stalls, and there was no indication on the submitted plans that Jim Dandy's or the property owner would be striping the parking lot. A restaurant is required to have 1 space per 150 square feet for gross dining space plus 1 space per employee for the work shift with the largest number of employees. The amount of gross dining space or the largest number of employees for the restaurant have not been provided to determine if this proposal will meet parking requirements for the restaurant. The temporary parking area proposed for 8860 East South 27th Street will reduce the available parking for the existing motel and residents on the property. A motel is required to have one space per room or suite, plus one space per employee for the work shift with the largest number of employees, plus one space per 3 persons based on maximum capacity. The number of rooms, capacity of the rooms, and number of employees working the largest shift was not provided to determine if this proposal will meet the minimum parking requirements for the hotel and residents. The north side of the proposed temporary parking area is located on the adjoining property of 2231 West Putes Road. Our code allows a property owner the ability to reduce the number of parking spaces if they can demonstrate that adequate shared parking will be available within 400 feet of the lot line and can submit written verification that they have permission to utilize that parking area for their patrons. However, no authorization is on file for 8868 South 27th Street to expand their parking lot onto 2231 West Putes Drive, nor for 8868 and 8900 South 27th Street to use the parking lot for a shared parking area. The site plan shows that barriers indicated by the black lines on the map shown will be located around the event space. No context was provided for the red X's, but staff believes that these are proposed entry points. The blue squares indicate the location of the 3 porta-johns that will be placed on the property. There was no description on what type of barrier would be used on the property as well. The extended patio space, again, was not indicated on the site plan, but was discussed with the applicant and has been in use for approximately 1 year without Plan Commission approval. This was a Google map photo taken in September of 2020 showing how that space is situated on the property. Jim Dandy does have an outdoor approved outdoor covered dining space behind the building, which you can see on the map on the right. Unfortunately, it is labeled incorrectly and it says stage, but that is the approved outdoor dining space that has been there for, I believe, 8 years. Staff estimates that this proposed space, the patio space, is approximately 30 feet by 60 feet, and it is consuming up some parking space. Staff altered the site plan. Staff altered the site plan to help depict the location of the patio. The location of this patio is also located in the special flood hazard area. Part of this proposal is for an event series. 15 music events and an unknown number of other type of outdoor events would occur on the property. The concert series will be held every Saturday between June 5th and September 4th, 2021. The events start at 6:30 p.m., but no ending time for these events was provided in the submittal. Additional outdoor events such as car shows, fundraising events, and others were not included in the list of events provided to staff. Crowd control measures were not addressed in this proposal as well. Before I provide the history of the proposal and address the code enforcement issues occurring on the property, I would like to encourage the Plan Commission to use tonight's meeting as an opportunity to review and discuss the plans that we have received and not focus on correcting the code enforcement issues that I'm about to present. In 2020, the applicant approached the city and about holding outdoor events on his property. The applicant was informed that he could not hold temporary drive-in movie nights and would need to come in and discuss any other events with staff. The applicant unfortunately did not follow through with this request and began holding outdoor events. The police department reported several complaint calls regarding noise and parking issues for these events, but the season ended and the complaint ceased. On March 31st, 2021, the applicant came into the Civic Center and spoke to staff regarding his proposed concert series, stage, and shipping container for this upcoming year, 2021. Staff instructed the applicant to seek Plan Commission approval before proceeding with his plans and stated that temporary concert stage must be taken down within 24 hours of each event. Staff never received a Plan Commission submittal after this conversation. On May 18, 2021, staff was alerted to the presence of the 40-foot shipping container and electrical and construction work being done without the issuance of permits. Further inspection revealed that the presence of the stage, extended patio space, and shipping container within the flood hazard area and the applicant's intent to move forward with outdoor music events. At this point, a notice of violation letter was issued on May 24th, and it contained 6 violations. A stop work order was then issued on May 25th due to the electrical and construction work being done without permits. On May 25th, I also had a conversation with the applicant about the violation letter and informed him that the shipping container and extended patio may not remain until the property receives approval from Plan Commission. The applicant disagreed with the instructions, but proceeded to ask if the shipping container could be temporarily stored on the property of 8868 South 27th. I did agree to this request. I issued a temporary use permit to allow for the shipping container to be stored on the property until the Plan Commission meeting, with several conditions, including all temporary patio space must be removed, and that the shipping container must be removed from the premise within 72 hours after the Plan Commission meeting. The shipping container was promptly moved to 8868 South 27th Street. On June 11th, I visited the site to record the existing conditions of the property. At that point, I identified the temporary patio space was still present. This violated the conditions of the temporary use permit. The applicant approached me during this site visit, and I explained the violation to him. Additional details about the applicant's conversation with staff have been included in the staff report, and they can add a little more color to some of those conversations. Since June 5th, 2021, staff have received 17 complaints regarding noise and parking issues. Our PD and Alderman Guzikowski has also reported multiple complaints they have received. I want to note that these complaints were not all for the outdoor music events. Staff have received complaints regarding squealing of tires and cars being displayed along 27th Street and Grays Lane during Jim Dandy's June 13th car show. Pictures of the event space in use and parking issues have been included in your packet. During the Jim Dandy's June 12th, 2021 concert, I took decibel readings in several areas surrounding the neighborhood. A decibel reading map was provided in your packets for review. Section 17.0810 states at no point on the boundary of a residence or business district shall the sound intensity level of any individual operation exceed 58 to 62 decibels, respectively, during normal operations. As you can see in this map, the decibel readings consistently exceeded code away from Jim Dandy's. This slide provides a few observations I made during the June 12th concert event. These observations include noticeable impacts on the surrounding neighborhood and patrons consuming alcoholic beverages on the property of 8868 South 27th Street, which is not covered by the liquor license issued to Jim Dandy's. In conclusion, staff does not support this proposal because the use of the property as outdoor music and event space is not a permitted use in a B4 district, and it creates several negative impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. A suggested motion has been provided for the Plan Commission.
Thank you, Lori. That was quite a bit. Holy cow. Is the applicant with us? They'd like to say a few words. Please. At the podium, we will need your name and address, please.
My name is Charlie DeWitt, 2147 South 67th Street, West Dallas.
Okay. Floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't even know where to start. She brought up the summer or the outdoor venues last year. I specifically called 3 or 4 times just to make sure I was doing everything correctly, and I was told I don't need a special events permit to hold these events, and it's been told to me 7 or 8 times. That's why I continued to move forward with the drive-in movie, the concerts and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden, May 18th or June 18th, everything kind of changed. I understand that the shipping container actually did need the special use permit. I sent it in. People are saying it didn't get here. That's my fault for not checking. But in regards to the concerts and stuff like that, I was told I did not need a special permit. We try to be extremely respectful for everybody. We shut down by 9:55. I just, I don't know really kind of where all this is coming from. I don't, except for the container. That's what I thought I was actually here for, is to get used to the container.
And that's truly what we're focused on.
Okay.
We're just getting the background of everything. And as I said, you kind of brought up, you did it last year. Last year was a COVID year. We were really trying to help businesses, and I'm not going to speak for staff on what was said or not said, but we really tried to encourage businesses to stay afloat and do some things. And I specifically remember the drive-in. We really had no ordinance for anything such as that. So we were kind of in a very gray area, and yet we were still juggling CDC rules on large gatherings and things like that. So the city, I did not endorse things such as that. I know they went on around the city and things like that, but again, now that we're in another place and time and a little further down the line, we have to respect city process and all ordinances attached to the city. So I'll continue to give you the floor. I just wanted to make.
No, so I took over the ball in 2019, December. So all I've known is, no, you don't need this. No, you don't need this. And that's why I've kind of continued. She did step by to take pictures of the patio. I actually took down the wall. I didn't realize that, tables are considered an outdoor patio. I asked for an explanation of what is considered an outdoor patio. And really wasn't given it. And I said, they said patio, like the wall and the tables. I said, well, can you put in writing that tables are an outdoor patio? Was told no. And that's kind of where that stands. So when they've driven by and said I'm still in violation, my thing is, well, I just want to know, put in writing that tables are considered a patio. No one's sitting out there. I don't have the staff to actually have anybody come out there and wait on staff or wait on patrons yet. So, like I said, we're not actively out trying to just disobey what the city says. I just asked for something in writing. I believe that's fair.
Hey, but you were aware that the patio's in the flood frame.
And that's why I took down the wall. That's what I consider the patio. I actually had a retaining wall that went around and took that down the same day.
I believe the patio itself actually sits in a corner of the flood fringe, according to the drawing. So you would need to remove that if my memory serves me, within 48 hours of use. Can't be there longer than that, but continue.
Okay, and so that's pretty much where I'm at right now, in order.
Yeah. Obviously, this is why we have ordinances and things in place, so we can work these things out ahead of time if the proper things are followed. To be fair, I'm kind of a fan of shipping containers myself. I think it's a neat, novel idea when done correctly and permitted correctly, but it doesn't excuse starting the construction without taking out the proper permits. As a city, we do have to look at our use of those shipping containers as they become more popular and used throughout the city. And I'm sure that our staff will take that into account very soon. I don't think it's anything that's insurmountable if done correctly, but obviously things went very much out of order here. So we have some parking issues as well going on and lack of protective barriers. That doesn't very much work for us. Just within our ordinances, for flow over parking to the next property, we need that written permission. Duly note it and document it. What else do I have here?
I'm sorry.
15 events are proposed, 6 to an end time, which I would imagine is probably 10 o'clock.
Correct. It's a hard 10. Like I said, we normally shut that down.
This is a very difficult part, and I imagine that's why all the people are staring at me right now. Yeah. We got some neighborhoods that we contend with here, very much so. And this has always been a very difficult assignment for businesses that are along 27th and abut neighborhoods, and trying to coexist. We have to find that common ground. Folks want to enjoy their backyards just as well. And I'll tell you, 15 events seems, I don't know how many weekends are in the summer, but holy cow, that's got to be getting to every one. So I can't speak from the audience, sir, but I'll give you guys a chance duly. So there's a lot to go over here.
In regards to crowd control, I do have a security team of 7 people that come every Saturday. And they are there blocking all the axes were entry points into the.
Again, we're glad you're making that effort, but we really depend upon our PD and our fire to determine what's safe and appropriate.
I've actually had 2 meetings with the police departments in Oak Creek.
And obviously the road's not wide, or the parking lane's not wide enough at 18 foot. It's supposed to be 20. So we got code issues all over the place here. I know
nothing's been striped off yet until we actually found out what needs to be done.
I'm taking a lot of your time here, but I don't want to deflate the seriousness of the issues we have going on here. It's a laundry list of things. And again, we always want to be business friendly and learn to coexist, but we got to go through the proper steps. as well. So Doug, it looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I just have a few clarifications and then based on some of the questions or statements. And I think you're absolutely correct, Mayor. And in 2020, we made every effort for businesses to make appropriate provisions to, serve their customers and quite honestly, to stay afloat. Whether it's, letting businesses use public parking spaces as customer service and drop off or pickup points, or in your case, allowing some flexibility in terms of what your offerings were for your customers in terms of the movie nights, what have you. So you're absolutely right in that respect. Talking about the definition of an outdoor patio, and I'm only speaking because I did have that conversation with Mr. DeWitt. And I explained to him from the city's perspective is if you got tables and chairs out there and your customers are consuming food or beverage that was purchased at your property, that's a patio. Now, he made this statement, and I won't speak for him, essentially that, well, they're just tables and chairs. And, that's, I don't necessarily buy into that definition. So that's where that is. Just curious, and just your meetings with the PD, when were they and with whom?
So it was with the shift commander. I don't remember his name. It was 3 weeks prior to the event starting off because my biggest thing was.
I don't think you're.
I'm sorry. I think my biggest thing was the safety of the public, and 27th has been an issue with a lot of people. How can we make this safe for everybody and yet still be, a fun event? And then the following week, he happened to be in the parking lot on a Monday when we're closed. And we sat there and talked for 45 minutes, and he said we were actually more planned with the security to make sure they were only trying to park on one side of Gray's Lane because we did realize that there has to be enough room for an emergency vehicle to get through. The first weekend that we did have a concert, the police did come out to actually go down Gray's Lane and said there was plenty of room. Like I said, we have tried to be active. I've talked to a lot of the people on Gray's Lane to figure out what their concerns were, and we've tried to address them. It's not like we just try to go up there and say, hey, this is this. I did have conversations with not only Oak Creek, but Franklin. And I know they're not part of this, but 27th does share both. And they said their biggest concern was 27th Street, and we really tried to keep everybody off of 27th Street. That's why I tried to take over the lot next to me for additional parking.
Sure. Let's talk for a moment about the lot next to you. What takes place on that lot during these events?
Just parking.
Just parking. The stage is on your property?
Yes, it is.
Liquor sales and consumption are on your property?
Yes, well, I can't say liquor sales are on, or the sales, yes, consumption.
Can you bring up the site plan that you provided, please? So, can you show me, or just roughly where your property boundary is on that, or just describe it to me?
The property boundary is where the Jim Dandy's electric sign is that goes across.
And that big black square, that's, I presume, is the stage?
No, we're actually changing to where the stage is, where you guys changed it to patio. We're actually going to be taking down the temporary stage that we're using now.
But that's where it was?
Yeah.
And the red rectangle that says bar?
That hasn't been up yet. That's going to be the shipping container.
Okay, and do you have, obviously you're serving patrons alcohol at these events?
Yes, sir.
Do they know where the property line is?
Yes, because it's barriered off right now.
Yes. Where is that barrier?
If you flip back through some of your things, there should be like road barriers. There are barricades, sand and wood. So that's an old picture.
Okay. Just suffice to say that, just please be aware of what your liquor license allows you to do.
That is correct.
And what it does not allow you to do. Another point, and I'll yield for further questions, is the way you have the parking laid out on the property to the north. Again, I think Lori spoke to that. It does not meet the requirements for emergency access. And, at some point, if this is going to be considered accessory to your use of this property as a restaurant, we need to have, meaning the planning commission, need to have that conversation about whether that's appropriate or whether and I think we mentioned in our conversation that I said that there was a distinct difference in my mind between a restaurant that has entertainment and an entertainment venue such as this. And that's why, at our request, and thank you for continuing on with that, we ask that you come to the Plan Commission for approval of a temporary use permit, which would allow for the events that you had proposed. And it's not just about the shipping container. So, and maybe just a little clarification there. It started as the shipping container, but given the magnitude of what we saw happening there, we quickly, and I believe correctly so, identified that this is no longer a use that is merely accessory to the operation of the restaurant, but it's kind of a use in and of itself that require a temporary use permit.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug. Anything else, Mr. DeWitt?
No, I think that's it for now.
Okay, for now. You might get called back up here, clarify some questions or comments.
That's right.
Forward. Thank you. Before I go to the commission, I know there's a few residents that I want to say a few words. I'm gonna invite you up here. We'll need your name and address. We will need the form filled out for the records. I ask that you just kind of keep it brief. I'm sure there's a laundry list of everything you'd like to say, but I'm sure it's been brought out or rehashed. So anybody wishing to come up and speak, come on up, sir. And you can just hand that to Carrie on your right there. Thank you.
Kirk Lemberger, 2230 West Hilltop Lane. I applaud these men because they're trying to make their business go. I don't think anybody has an issue with that. My concern is, of course, stopping at 10 o'clock. If we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they can stop at 10 o'clock, I think that's acceptable. It's not like this venue is going through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's just on the weekend. But I know, and I'm sure a number of these people here are in the same breath that I am. 10 o'clock, let's be done.
I appreciate that sentiment, and that is our noise ordinance, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you. Another hand? Yes, sir.
My name is Jim Batchelor. I live at 8931 South 26th Street. My main issue is this is every single Saturday from now till the end of September. We all know what we went through in 2020 with COVID. We want to enjoy our backyards with our friends and family. Last weekend was Father's Day. I wanted to have my family up on Saturday. I was unable to because I had to listen to country music in my backyard. I don't want to listen to music every single Saturday. If I want to listen to music, I want it to be on my accord in my backyard. I want your business to succeed, but you cannot consume the entire neighborhood's weekends, Saturdays, with your music from 6 until 10. You've been very good at stopping at 10 o'clock, and I applaud that because we've had issues in the past with other businesses in our area that we all know about that we don't need to go into. My second issue, I had to call the police at 7:30 in the morning on their day of your car show because you had cars ripping up and down 27th Street like it's Great Lakes Dragway. It's unacceptable. We cannot allow this to continue. His use of the building and the failure to follow the rules need to be enforced, and we need to have something that stops this. I'm fine with some concerts, but every single Saturday is just unacceptable in my opinion. I don't think any of you would want this in your backyards every single Saturday. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jim. Next, come on up, sir.
I'll turn the slip in. I'm Jonathan Cantor, and I live in the house directly behind Jim Dandy's, and it literally is my backyard. I've lived on this street for 40 years. I'm 46 years old. I've lived in the house I'm at now for 25 years. I love what Charlie and Val have done for the community. They've done so much for the school, donating money. We just raised money at a car show for veterans for the honor flight. As far as the concerts go, I had a birthday party for my granddaughter who's 4 years old on Saturday. And we carried on a normal conversation just like this while the band was going on. My mother, who's 70 years old, who lives in the second house on the street, was over. And there was not a noise issue. I understand some people have complaints and things, but it's just frustrating to me because I see these guys trying to make a go of the business and maybe one of the worst times to open a restaurant in the history, or at least in our lifetime. And I think they're doing a great job. And as someone who's lived on that street literally forever, I can go back to the country castle days. Live music, seeing people out enjoying themselves. I don't like all the bands either. I'm not a fan of every type of music, but you know what? I sincerely enjoy the fact that they're doing something for the community. A lot of people gathering, having a good time. It's great to see again. I hope it continues.
All right, thanks for the input.
Yep.
Are there others? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Michelle Kinchevsky, and I'm a patron.
Pull that microphone down. Don't stretch like that.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So my name is Michelle Kinchevsky, and I live at 8385 South Golden Fields. I do not live near that area, but I can say that I've been a patron of Jim Danny's prior to this owner and now with Charlie. And the reason that we frequent it as often as we do is because I want to just share with everybody the amount of effort he puts into the community. He has provided during COVID when it was awful for every business and for him, and yet he still donated food to the Ascension Hospital, to first responders. Every single Friday night, he donates 50 meals to the homeless. During his busy Fish Fry night, he is still putting out of that small kitchen food to feed other people. So I hope that you can take into consideration that he has done a lot for the community. We've been there for a couple of the bands. The people are always very respectful. There's not any fighting going on. Like he said, he's hired a security firm that comes in and just monitors to make sure everybody's, doing what they need to be doing. And it's a family event. There are people who are going with kids to actually listen to some of these bands. So there has been some violations, and I know he's going to try and correct those things for you guys, but please consider not stopping this because it is a community event that a lot of people like to go to.
Hey, thank you, Michelle. Sir, you got something?
I'm Bernie Hall. I live at 9022 South 26th Street. I just want to say I think we should let them have a chance, let them have their venues. They do a lot of good for the community. They've done a lot of good for the hospital. My wife, she's a nurse in the hospital. She's come home raving about how good they've been to them, through COVID. Everything they've done, donate food. We've stopped in there. Good food, good people. Everything's good. I get it. There's some violations. I think with all my heart that they'll get them corrected and make what's right for everybody. I don't find it right that we should shut this down like we have other businesses or even potential businesses in the neighborhood because of supposed noise complaints. And I realize Franklin's not in our jurisdiction, but we've got Mulligan's right across the road. They're packed. They got people parking on the roads, right on 27th Street. I get it. It's a business. They're busy during peak times, and it's going to happen, but we got to give them a shot. We really do.
Thank you for the input, Brian. Yep. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else wish to say a few words? No.
Hi, my name is Kim Batchelder. I live at 8931 South 26th Street, so I'm kind of kitty corner in the backyard to them. Thank you for what you have done to the community for COVID, but also I'm a nurse. I work at St. Luke's. I've worked through COVID, and having COVID concerts last summer was more of a slap in the face to me than anything, maskless. I did not appreciate that at all. Another thing I don't appreciate is the every week concerts. I think it's a bit excessive. I can't enjoy one single weekend all summer long. This is Wisconsin. I'm freezing 3/4 of the year. But in the summer, I just want to sit outside on my deck and have a nice conversation with my friends and family. The first weekend, I worked a 12-hour shift, came home, just wanted to sit outside. It was so noisy out. It was echoing off the neighbors' houses. I went in the house, closed the doors. My patio doors and my windows were rattling. It was so loud. I went upstairs to take a shower. My shower door was rattling. Like, I couldn't get away from it. I was exhausted. I just wanted to sit and watch TV. I couldn't hear my TV without having it at an obscene level. It I was so tired. So there was parking along both sides of Gray's Lane at that point. So I was concerned about if there was an emergency, people being able to get through to Gray's Lane. Also, I had concerns with the barriers. They're just like those orange and white barriers. Like I feel I could plow through it on my bike. What if, with their reconfigured parking lot, a car misnavigates the parking lot? I just feel like that's not a safe barrier to have in the parking lot with the patio and the people there. Basically, my biggest concern on my personal level is my quality of life. We had tried having some people over for the second heavy metal concert, and we couldn't have a normal conversation in my backyard without having to raise our voices just to be able to hold a conversation. And I just don't want to live my summer like that. I want to be able to have people over on a Saturday night and enjoy my summer. And it was just so noisy. I downloaded the Decibel app on my phone, and it was in the 70s. I kind of took it with a grain of salt because I wasn't really sure how accurate that was. But on the Decibel readings that were on the screen before, that one where it got to 83, that was right in front of my house. So it is quite loud at my house, and I just don't, I'm fine with the occasional concert, but every single Saturday, I just want some weekends of peace and quiet to enjoy.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I know there were a few more hands. Anybody else wishing to? Yes, sir.
Larry Kangas, 980 East Randy Road in Oak Creek. I'm also work for a radio station, so I support radio. There are summer music series in different suburbs as well. I know we're only worried about Oak Creek.
That's right. We're only worried about Oak Creek.
Right. But Maddie's has it, New Berlin, Paulie's Pub has it in West Allis. I think the music venues can adhere to rules. He does a great job with his music. I think, as long as he has the guidelines, the structure that you're asking for, I'm sure he will adhere to be able to accommodate what you're looking for, as well as for, I know, the residents within the area with the decibel levels. Horny Goat Brewery down on First Street used to have music, and there were complaints and stuff then. It can be.
Really? Who was complaining? There was no residents at the time.
Pardon?
There were no residents at the time.
On 6th Street.
For Horny Goat?
On 6th Street, people were complaining about the decibel level. So he made accommodations to make sure that the decibel levels did get lowered, because he did get complaints. So it can be done. I'm sure Chuck will do everything possible to adhere to the rules that you set forth. But I'd like to see another music venue be allowed.
Great. Thank you. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Did you fill out a form? Could you do that? We need your name and address for the record.
Chester Seidel, 2216 West Grays Lane. I live right up the road. I don't have an issue with concerts or anything. My concern is some of the last events he's had have been pretty crowded. The car show in particular, they ran out of places for people to park. They were actually double parked on Grays Lane, so you could only get, if you turned in, there was a car coming at you, you had to wait, and traffic was backing up trying to turn in because they didn't know that right where you turn in on the intersection of Grays Lane, that it was all clogged. So it starts backing up. The other issue is when you're trying to pull out of Grays Lane, making a left or right turn, trying to cross the road, when they're parking all the way up to the corners, now you're having to pull out into one of the lanes to see the traffic in the lane. So if there's a car coming, you're out far enough, you're going to get the front end of the car taken off. My concern is if you're going to continue to do this, law enforcement needs to give guidance or tape up the road or something so that there's no parking on that road where you turn in. So it's the full width of the road. Secondly, the traffic from the corner back, at least 50, 60 feet has to be set back on each side so you can see traffic north and south on 27th. Because otherwise you're having to pull your vehicle way out to see the traffic. By then you're in the middle of traffic. That's my only thing that needs to be addressed.
Understood, and I'll make comment to that in a bit, so. Yes, ma'am.
Jill Stevenson, 8961 South 26th Street.
You can pull that microphone.
Okay. Again, I applaud everything that you've done for the community during COVID. That is fantastic. All of that stuff that was mentioned does not interrupt me any night of the week. I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to be around it. This week, Saturday, we are finally getting together with our family. I have 80-year-old in-laws and a father. We have hardly seen them in a year. So Father's Day, perfect time, right? Guess what? It was Saturday we got to get together. We were in our backyard enjoying ourselves. The music started. 3 songs in, my in-laws left. Is that fair? Would you like that? Would you like that in your backyard? I invite you all, come on over to our backyard, sit in there. I'll switch your backyards with you. I know where some of you live. I'll sit in your backyard on Saturday, you sit in mine. If you think this is so much fun, it isn't. I get it. Okay, a little music. We listen to Mulligans twice a year. Twice a year. We deal with it. We know when it's coming. But every single Saturday, would you want that? I don't think so. It's not fair. It's not a little Alpine Valley going on. And that's what they've turned it into.
Thank you. Is that it? Come on up, sir.
Hi, my name is Jim Copeland. I live at 2420 West Grays Lane. I live a few houses behind Jim Dandy's. Everything that my neighbor said is completely true. The other option, the thing that we run into is that past Jonathan's house, they park on one side, but yet all the way up to the top of the hill going over Grays Lane going east, you have to wait for traffic to come. Somebody's got to pull in somebody's driveway to let people get through. On the car show event, great, that was fine. It was a great thing, except for one small issue. You had people pouring out into the street, into West Grays Lane, that were like cattle. You had to shoo them out of the way so you could either get into or out of Grays Lane. You got to the end of Grays Lane to turn either left or right. As my neighbor mentioned, you can't see left. You can't, well, obviously you can see right, but you can't see left because everything is blocked. Parked up to the stop sign. The other issue we have is, and I applaud if you've talked to your people so far this year, but in the past, we've had to go up and down the ditch, and we picked up sacks of bottles, cans, little liquor bottles, trash. I don't want that anymore. You know, the music's fine, doesn't bother us, but everything else that goes with it does.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir?
Fred Plasek, 2401 Hilltop Lane. And again, not to go over much of what we've already heard, I feel very sorry for those people on 26th Street. We're on Hilltop. We're another few blocks away. The other night, we had our doors closed, air conditioning on, and still hearing the booming and the thumping and trying to just relax and watch TV, and we're still hearing this. And I know that seems to be a bit of a discrepancy here. Some people, it's not that loud. I'm 6 to 8 blocks away, and I'm hearing this. With our doors closed, I feel for the lady having the relatives over and not being able to even sit on her patio. They're only 2 blocks away. And so our main concern is, again, sure seems to me like 15 concerts is excessive. It sure seems to me that the readings that you took on the sound, how much, I mean, that's accurate. That's what it is. And that's over the ordinance levels, is my understanding, correct? And it's excessive and it's too loud. And to be able to sit on our patios that far away and not be, to be able to enjoy a Saturday night seems to be, I mean, it's a quality of life issue. And so that's all I have to say.
Okay, I think that was all the hands I had seen. If I missed anything, just let me know. Before I go to the commission, I'm going to ask our Assistant Chief, Mike Havey, to come up and just kind of give us perspective on from fire. And Mike, you can keep it brief. We've heard quite a bit. I know you guys are good about working with this, but where do you guys sit with getting in with crowds and cars parked on the roads?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission. Mike Havey, Assistant Chief with Fire. I think some of the sentiments expressed by the city staff with egress. So really that, from what we've seen from some of the proposals, there will be some modifications needed for emergency access vehicles. As far as the structure, if it's a temporary structure, there's really limits on what the code provides. If it becomes a permanent structure, that could change as far as any fire protection that would be needed or required. Again, really it revolves around the access to the structures for emergency vehicles. So that 20-foot, and then the parking and the other issues need to be addressed. Any other questions or concerns from fire?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. Yep. Before I go to commission, I don't normally do this. I usually speak last, but I'm gonna try to put this in a nutshell to kind of speed things up. Obviously, we've established, first of all, Lori Miller, our zoning representative here, she did put this out. This is about conditional use based on the container and those things. And then there were code violations, and they kind of go hand in hand, and we spoke about a lot of it, whether it was parking, alcoholic beverage leaving the premise, things like that, and licensing. Those are all separate issues, but they are intertangled here and do need to be taken into account as well. But we're really looking at right now just the issues on conditional use permit for the items we talked about.
Mayor, that's a temporary use.
Or temporary use. Thank you. Thank you for the correction. And we need to take that into account. Obviously, there's support within the community for Jim Dandy's business, and from what I heard from the residents, there's definitely there has to be limits set on what can and can't be done. And that's why we have ordinances, and that's why we have processes, so we know what's going on there. So if a car show is going on or this container is going on, we know what's going on, and we can try to fix these problems in advance rather than backing up and doing it on the back end here weeks later. The inconvenience of people with family gatherings and safety issues. Bad things could have happened too, just due to lack of planning and coordination with the city. So obviously, I think there's probably, our goal isn't to shut him down and put him out of business. And our goal isn't to make life miserable on the residents. It's to find a coexisting somewhere in the middle there. If it's the number of events, the timing of it, things like that, so everybody can kind of coexist. The one man said he's lived there 40 years through multiple innovations of the business, and they figured it out in one way or one form or another. I think we need to back it up and get there. I think the recommendation from our staff is prudent, and I would encourage you guys, not only our staff, but the applicant, to get together and hammer these things out in order so we can come back here and work it out. And, take into account neighborhood input as well. And I'd be willing to attend these meetings, and I'm sure the alderman, I don't want to speak for you, and I'm going to give him the floor next, but be glad to work on this to expedite something that's livable for everybody. And again, I appreciate everything you've done in the community. From what I understand, you run a fine establishment. Obviously, I didn't know about generosity towards our frontline workers, and that's greatly appreciated. But I do think without starting World War III, we can figure this out and move ahead. So with that, I'm going to go a little bit out of order here. I'm going to give it to the 6th District Alderman, Chris Guzikowski. It is his district, and I want to give you the floor, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have heard from over 20 people via email, voicemail, or text messages. The calls have ranged in disbelief, like I can't believe this. We have to listen to this all summer long. To I'm happy that at least it was quiet at 10 o'clock and everything in between. I appreciate everything that your business does, but we also have to look at being a good neighbor, and that's what I'm not seeing. On the day that the toys played, I waited at my house. I lived behind you off of 13th and Putes. And I waited until I could start hearing music, and it was about 7:15 or so when I was hearing some of the music. And then I know the toys, I've heard them before, so I knew that was them playing. So I said, I'm going to go take a ride over there. And I took a ride over to experience it for myself. Everything that each of the neighbors has brought up, from parking to getting in and out of Gray's Lane to parking and getting off on 27th Street, all of that is a legit issue. I am always going to be the first person to support business, but right now we have a bunch of neighbors that are losing their backyards and their summers because of this. So I think that we can find a happy medium, and that's what I would encourage you to do, is to work with the staff to come up with a solution that is workable for everybody.
Is that right, Chris?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments? Let's start with Commissioner Chandler out there in Zoom land.
Well, I do have a question for the applicant. And
Hey, shoot your question and we'll relay it. It's really hard to hear you. Yep, go ahead.
so I just wanted to give more details on the actual container, where the stage is, where the patio is, just more details about the temporary use permit.
Okay, looking for more detail on the shipping container, the construction of it, and the use as a temporary use.
Yes.
So, you know, it's a 40 by 8 steel container. It's been modified with, from what I can see, roll-up garage doors. A wooden staircase has been constructed to a platform above. I would think they did a flat floor up there, but I can't speak for that. Basically, it's to provide extra bar space. But again, the materials at this point in time are not approved by the city. If I'm correct, if I'm speaking out of turn, Lori, please correct.
No, you're correct, Mayor. The materials of the shipping container do not meet the building materials.
Right, and I think that's something, you know, this is becoming a very trendy option for things. And as I said, I myself, kind of a fan of these things. I think it's good repurpose use, but again, that's pretty much it. On a temporary use and
Mayor, maybe it's just one clarifying question on Commissioner Chandler's question. Where will this be if it's not going to be in the location that he identified on the site plan that he gave us?
And mine's heading there next. And then does it have to leave the premise when it's done at the end of season? So, Lori?
So right now, because it being 40 feet long, it's 20 feet longer than what we would allow for a temporary portable structure. So therefore, that's the reason why we would have to consider this as a permanent structure. It would have to go through all the review and permitting processes as a permanent structure.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Did that make sense, Commissioner Chandler? So just the physical size of it doesn't fit our code, and it would have to be considered a permanent structure and not a temporary beyond the location.
But I would also like a clarification from the applicant on where, if not on the site plan as shown, where this bar / seating area will be located on the property during these events.
Mr. DeWitt, do you have an idea? You'll have to come up to the microphone, sir.
That is actually where it's going to be located.
So you're locating the bar in an area that you can't legally serve alcohol?
Is that the property line? I actually haven't seen a property line. It's supposed to be inside the property line. So wherever the property line is, that's where it's going to sit.
Sure. So Mr. DeWitt, the map that's up on the right-hand side is actually showing the boundary of the property for 8868. So that isn't your property. So technically the way the stage is shown, the bar is shown, and a portion of that patio would not be located on your property.
Well, that patio, then I can move it into where it is on the property.
I believe the measurements would not work out to allow for all those items in that space. And thank you, Carrie, that also is in the floodway. And so that would not be allowed in the floodway.
So on that, just to clarify for me, on that picture on my right, to be your left to everybody, that yellow space is not his property, the one defined in yellow.
Correct. That's the property to the north. That's 8868 South 27th Street. Jim Dandy's is located at 8900 South 27th Street.
So he would significantly have to move it south.
Correct.
I guess my question is, what's with those semi trucks? They're off the property too.
That is also a code violation. They are not allowed to have semi-truck parking in that lot. But that is not something we're going to deal with
Okay,
today.
we don't want to go there tonight.
Well, I think just to put a bright line on that, it's obviously an old property with a number of issues, whether they're legal non-conforming or not. I mean, it's really not the discussion that this was.
No, I agree. I said we're not going there. I just wanted to clarify.
And the trucks are gone. I actually took over that and got rid of the trucks. Okay. So they're no longer there. Okay. And then I just have a real quick question. We're considering this a permanent structure, but it's been moved 3 times in 2 weeks. So I don't understand, what is a permanent structure?
Well, Lori can give us a definition of a permanent structure, but it does have to be located on your property. That I know.
And I can move it in.
Lori, permanent structure.
Sure. So when we started looking at the analysis of this, it was a shipping container. And it's not something that we would normally allow as a permanent structure in our code. We would have to look at it as a temporary structure in our code. This is going to be a convoluted explanation. I apologize. But our code for a temporary portable structure only allows up to 20 feet in length. This is 40 feet in length.
Understood.
So once again, we're back to, we think that it should be considered a permanent structure.
So if I cut the container in half, it's 20 feet. Now it's considered a permanent, because that can be done.
Technically, yes. I guess it could be.
Because I have 20 feet.
Then you're only allowed so many accessory structures on a piece of land.
Well, I mean, I'd get rid of the half we're not using.
Okay, well, you know what? We'll figure that out in the end. But Commissioner Chandler, I guess that's kind of the question. Our code basically does not allow that as a temporary use structure just due to its physical size. So it would have to be worked into a permanent structure in some way, shape, or form and go through the appropriate inspection and approval process of any other structure. And probably get an amendment for use with material.
Can we get an amendment to the size?
That would have to work on getting to that step.
We got some work to do on that one. But you still have the floor, Chauncey.
Thank you. That was my question.
Okay, thank you. Fred.
I'm up already, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going right to left on my side.
You caught me off a little bit.
If you want to wait, I can move on and come back.
No, I'm ready. I've been ready a few minutes before. Okay. The question I have is, who owns the property north of your business?
Sean Uptall.
Do you have a letter of approval to store things and use that property for parking?
He's here right here, but yeah, I can get you a letter put in writing.
But do you have a letter that states that?
Not on me, but I can get one for you. Absolutely.
Okay. The other thing is the floodplain. You have containers, those shipping containers are right on the floodplain area. They catch the corner of it right now. They're not on your property, but your neighbor's property. And that could create a problem because it can't be there more than 24 hours.
Correct. And we were able to move the container at any point now.
And then number 3, how do you move those containers?
With a bobcat.
I'm sorry, how?
With a bobcat.
With a bobcat.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Then the other thing is the parking. There's no striped parking that you have north of you other than your parking lot. How do people know where to park?
So as of right now, we were going to, but then we got the stop work order and we came here. So instead of striping everything, I wanted to make sure that we actually.
That's one of the problems too. And my personal opinion, I would put no parking on Grays Lane.
I've asked about that. I'm legally not allowed to put no parking on Grays Lane. They said the police has to come in and the city have to get involved. I've asked about it.
Also have to enforce parking on 27th Street. I've seen parking periodically on 27th on the weekends.
Correct. And if I could, I would, but if there's no parking signs, I can't put them up, is what I've been told. So I don't know how to stop people from that. I mean, the police have come through and not ticketed anybody. I mean, I've asked these questions with the city. I've even talked about shutting down Grays Lane and then having someone actually there to let residents of Grays Lane in and out so they don't have to deal with any of this. We was told that's not a good idea.
I'm not trying to shut your. No, I get it. We're trying to help promote and so forth. But there are a few regulations, like the mayor stated, that we need to follow and make sure that we take care of it.
Absolutely.
And that's a part that kind of irritates me a little bit, that you are doing some of these things without coming to the city first. So now all of a sudden, after you've been into this, now we're supposed to automatically approve it. That's the part that gets me a little bit. We have neighbors that are upset. How do we work with the neighbors?
And I have no problem sitting down with the neighbors and figuring out what an acceptable amount of concerts are. To me, too, about 15, if that's too many, I get it. You know, I'm not trying to ruin anyone's life and not let them use their homes. But I think there is an acceptable common ground between both of us if we just sat down and talked about it.
I'm not sure we can solve the problem tonight.
No, and it's not good to do this on the fly this way. We need to do this in order, in a meeting, and get our ducks in a row and come on back.
Really what I'm thinking right now is that we should put this item on hold until we get some of those problems resolved and agreed upon before we bring it back to the commission.
And I think that may be wise, Fred, and we'll get the opinion of some of the other commissioners and get their questions out of the way.
All right, well, I'll pass it on then.
All right, Don, you're up.
Okay. A lot of issues here. Obviously, I think ordinances dictate a lot of these, and that's what's going to get worked out. Every time we have a business come in and wants to do something and it affects the neighbors, they always say, I want to be a good neighbor, right? And I believe them, and I believe you do too. And every single Saturday throughout the summer, 6:30 to 10, to me, is not being a good neighbor. Give them a break. Every single Saturday. And I've seen a lot of these bands, and they're loud. And if you're in your backyard, they don't have to be necessarily breaking your ears, but it is going to be the dominant sound in the air. And it's just not fair. That's my opinion. I wouldn't like it, but no, we're not saying you shouldn't have any. Like you said, there's got to be some common ground here. That is what I consider unreasonable, to have one every single Saturday. So that's one thing I think that not necessarily an ordinance is going to solve, but I think everybody reaching some common ground on this. And it does make it more difficult that we're trying to, like Fred said, try to figure all this out on the fly after everything's began. That's my main concern, is that this is every single Saturday. That has to be worked out for sure. The rest of it, I think, we're gonna get rid of some of these. We got 14 exceptions or conditions upon this motion. That's too many. So I think the hold is probably going to end up being the best solution and get this worked out. And let's just everybody work together, city, business owners, and neighbors. That's all I got to say.
Chris, do you have anything more to add to what you did? Okay. Greg?
Just a few comments, and I'll kind of make it quick and separate, I guess, the two main points of this, the outdoor seating, the container, and all of that. I'm definitely a huge fan of outdoor seating. Any outdoor venue that I can go to, my family often looks for places they can sit outside. I know that there was issues when another business on 27th wanted to sit outside. A lot of that was the traffic barriers were not adequate. It appears that there's something similar being used here. I was in support of that venue. I would be in support of you figuring out a way to have outdoor seating, the container somewhere to be used. I like the idea. I also like outdoor music. I go to it very often. But as one of the residents said, that's easy for me to say because I don't live right behind you. I will say I live past Pute's down 27th, and I have heard on a couple Saturdays the music where I live. Now, it's not excessive, it's not loud where it's to the point of annoying me. But I feel for the residents when I'm hearing it that far away. And depending on the air, it does travel quite a bit. As far as working with the residents, I'm glad to hear you say that you're willing to work with them. Because I didn't hear a single person against this. They just conditionally were approving of it. Whether it's limiting the amount of concerts or finding a way to lower the decibel level, or whatever the case may be. I think all the neighbors are willing to work with you to allow you to do this. So I'm glad to hear that you're willing to work with them. So thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Dawn?
Let's start by saying I was there for the Toys concert. It was a great group of people, all different ages, and everybody was, no one was on top of each other. It was a nice event. One of the problems I have now with looking, especially on your property lines, is your liquor license, because I was way behind where that bar was, and clearly I was not on your premises. So those things will have to be taken into effect, as well as everything else that was mentioned. But if we can definitely limit the number and the decibels and all those kind of things, I would love to support you.
Yeah.
I guess I just have more of a comment. I'm not going to rehash what everyone has been speaking about. I guess I'm going to be more interested to see how you're going to be able to reach our noise ordinance on a 58 decibel level at the border of residential.
I mean,
that's going to be difficult to do looking at the map that they provided. I'm in support of it. I go to them myself. My family does. But I'm just guess, if we're trying to adhere to a noise ordinance.
But I mean, talking is 62 decibels. I mean, if we're standing outside talking, that's technically breaking, correct?
58.
62 is what I read. I mean,
well, it's 58 in residential, okay. 62 in business.
But I mean, but a normal conversation is 62 to 65 decibels.
And that's something I guess we'll have to discuss, per staff and commission. I guess I was just more interested in, I know there's ways of reducing it, and then I guess encourage presenting those.
Yeah, and I'm open to any suggestions of if we turn the stage to a different way.
Yeah, where, I think there's things that should be approached.
There's things, we can't erase it. I mean, it's noise, but we can try to limit it as best we can. And if it's acceptable a number of times a year, as people said, maybe we can live with that. So that's something to be worked out at this meeting along with staff.
And I agree with you. And the reduction of them instead of 15, there has to be some kind of common ground that everyone will come to. So other than that, I hear a lot of just agreeing amongst each other that, we'll work together, and, I look forward to it.
Christine?
Actually, Matt kind of stole my comment here. But even if you reduce it to even 4 concerts, how are you going to control the noise?
I don't think you can control the noise. I mean, it's going to be at that decimal level.
It's going to be a nuance to the resident who lives just behind you.
But I mean, if we come in agreement to how many concerts we can have, then the complaints won't come in, correct? I think that's where we have to meet on common ground of how many concerts we can have and be acceptable for everybody in the neighborhood. Because we're part of the neighborhood just like they are. And like I said, we're not trying to ruin people's summers, but, we're trying to make a living too, and I think there should be common ground. And if it's 4 or 6 or whatever it is every other weekend, that's something I think we can all decide. And at that point, they know what to expect. And then the complaint shouldn't come in of a noise decimal.
I think we'll be able to navigate that, if depending on what the limits are. And we've had other businesses through here recently that have expanded and maybe not have had live bands. And the question became, are you going to shut off at 10? I can take it if I know when it's coming and things like that. So that's kind of a work in progress. I don't think we're going to answer that here tonight. And I don't pretend to know exactly what that is, but I do have faith that between us all, we can get to it, because as one of the commissioners said, I didn't hear any shut them down, board up the doors and send them on their way. Either I want to thank everybody for the civil conversation that went on, and I know there was some vetting and some things that needed to be said. So I appreciate the patience and everybody showing up as well. So,
Okay.
Doug? Oh, I'm sorry, Christine, you still have the floor.
Yeah, so my question is, and I'm not sure if it's for you, Carrie, or Mr. Mayor, but so if we allow them, let's say, even for a season, for concert a season, with the amount of decibel that they have, are we gonna give them an exception to the ordinance?
Well, I can't answer that outright because, you know, any given business, I don't know what is fact of what 58 decibels is or 62 in a business district. I don't know what that is. We'll have to work on that positioning of stages and sound barriers, things of that nature. I don't know how to answer that one correctly. And Lori, if you can help me.
I think staff really needs to have a sit-down discussion about maybe methods of reducing some of that noise so it's not impacting the surrounding neighborhood as much. I can say that the stage was directed towards 27th Street and towards Franklin, which I suspected would have reduced a little bit of the sound. And I believe it did, because from reports from some of the members are even here today, they said that the first concert was incredibly loud, but the one that I took decibel readings on was a little bit quieter because they seem to have repositioned the stage.
Then I've actively asked the sound people to turn it down because the complaints were, and I've tried to work with them. And normally it's not the sound, it's the bass that really get to people, and that's what shakes the doors. And I've asked the sound people, can we turn that down, if anything? And then we're slowly trying to figure out how to reposition stuff to like I said, to make it bearable for everybody.
Oh, Lori, I have a question for you. So the ordinance is very clear. What is the zoning for this parcel and the one behind it?
The zoning directly behind it is RS3. The parcel to the north, which is the 8868, which they'd like to go and use for temporary parking, is also a B4.
About the resident just behind him in the backyard.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The resident behind him.
That's a RS3. And then the neighborhood to the southeast is also all RS3 for the most part, so.
So see, this is where I'm confused. The noise barrier doesn't know zoning, they just cross. So how are we gonna be able to control that? And it's gonna be very hard, even if you put sound there, even if you put concrete barriers out there, it's not gonna be able to stop it. So
this is why the staff had concerns about having this concert series. And again, I want to reiterate, it's not just the concert series. There's other events that are going on. One weekend, there was 3 events in one weekend. And so that does have an impact on the neighborhood.
And just to kind of add to that, before I let you go, one another comment I have is we have to be transparent. If we give them an exception, how far is this gonna go with other businesses? We're gonna give everyone an exception. So we just have to be careful how we approach that.
Yeah, very much so.
Absolutely correct.
Doug?
Yeah, and I think that's raised fair points, Commissioner Hanna. I mean, the levels in the ordinance are tools, and in 99% of the cases, is Lori out there with a decibel meter? No. And so we recognize that in certain situations those are exceeded, but it's in those situations where it's commonly and repeated multiple times and rises to the level of a nuisance that we need to have those numbers in there. So I think you're absolutely right. The correct way of going about this is working with the neighborhood, working with the city prior to doing this. And, you said you made attempts to do that, and I applaud that. And, certainly wish you would have followed up with our conversations that happened back in May before the concerts. It didn't happen. But my question to the commission is, if the decision this evening is going to be to hold this item, and it sounds like there's probably really good reasons to do that, in the interim, what happens? I mean, I think that's
my question. Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. Then what?
I would be still concerned if we give an exception. And of course, this is something we still have to discuss. We all have to be consistent with the entire community. Where is this going to take us?
Well, yes, you would. Without a doubt, it would have to be reasonable. We'd have to find something accepting, because this isn't the only place this exists. In other words, it's not the first and it won't be the last. So, I mean, we're going to have to figure it out. as a group. So I mean, you know, if we're gonna be that strict, we're gonna put a lot of people out of business, or we're gonna really make a lot of residents move. So we have to find a way to work together to find a happy median with this. And again, I don't know what that looks like right now, so I won't comment on that. But again, I won't answer where that lies going forward. But we do have to find something that's workable and works very much so for businesses and residents alike. In every situation, we were here two weeks ago, and we discussed a business on business arguing about noise and the time, and it was in a manufacturing district, both of them. And it was a very unique situation, and we came to a conclusion there. And I think we can come to a conclusion here, but we have to work through staff. As far as what comes next, we have to follow our current ordinance. So for the next 2 weeks, whatever that schedule is, there would be no concerts until they come back here. And the use of that bar, again, until we figure out what to do with that, that can't be used as well.
Mayor, just to
Yes.
get clarification, is it just concerts or is it any other events as well?
Yes, there would be other events as well, because we have to be informed of these things. If a car show's going on, or you name it, whatever it might be, these are the things we need to know ahead of time to avoid these problems that we're experiencing in the neighborhoods. Because if we can plan before this, whether it's parking issues, we can work with PD. And again, we had a pop-up beer garden. There was temporary no parking areas along our parkway as you enter that park. That was for safety precautions by PD. We do it during the farmers market as well and other events throughout the city. So we can figure these things out if we sit down in advance and plan it. That's what I'm saying. And we can figure it all out. Now, will we make every single person happy, from the business owner to the homeowner? No, I'm sure not. But you know what? I can never seem to make everybody happy in this town at one time anyway. So I guess I'm kind of used to it. You know, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's just fact of the matter. Commissioner Hanna, you start the floor.
Yeah, I agree. We still have to work on it, like you said, Mayor. I would like this conversation to definitely include the Oak Creek PD, because they will have a great input also for safety perspective.
I would agree, and you know, we appreciate they bring in a security service, but apparently if people are leaving the premise with alcohol, more attention needs to be paid by the security force, because that's been one of them.
And I think that was my fault. I didn't know where the property line was.
But again, you know what I mean?
For sure.
I'm not saying it's inconsequential, and I don't want to get into what the violations are with the code versus what we're talking about. But as I said before, it's hard. It all kind of blurs. So. And
then I have one more question. Am I allowed to use the temporary, to leave the container up there until the 2 weeks is back?
I would grant that extension.
Okay. And then if I move the tables in and out, is that still considered
we can meet, and that can be discussed and laid out. Unless you want to answer that now, Doug. You know, you guys are kind of the experts on it. Or would you rather see a detailed plan and get it all right?
You know, from my perspective, I think the principal issue that some of the neighbors have is not with the seats and the tables and the turf area and the patio. I certainly would want to talk to Lori about this, would hold in abeyance any action on that until there's a plan commission decision on that in the next 2 weeks. And beyond that, I would not grant any extension. But I think, you know, coming back to, do we have a meeting in 2 weeks? Okay. Yes, I would hold that hands.
What? Oh, never mind. My internal calendar is messed up.
That's 3 weeks.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, so excuse me. So, is he clear on that?
No concerts until we come back.
Okay. With that, the commission, we can move for a motion, is it just a simple hold? Do we have to grant the extensions, or are we fine with that through staff?
I'll do that on our.
Okay. The direction then would be to hold.
Zakowski makes a motion to hold item 8B for Jim Dandy's.
8 seconds.
I'm sorry, if you would, to a date certain.
Yes.
Until the July 13th meeting, the first planning commission meeting of July.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, beginning with Commissioner Lark, I believe.
Lark, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Zakowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Bill, aye.
I guess one more thing, and this is really for the neighbors. If you could, please email us with some appropriate comments. You don't have to write a novel on this, but appropriate amount of times you feel would be acceptable for them to have some sort of venues and shows, and define it as, please, as concerts. And if Jim Dandy's wants to venture into a car show here and there, what you feel would be acceptable to either myself, and I can be, my email address is on the city website, as well as to Alderman Guzikowski in the 6th District. So we can take it into account and pass it on to staff. If you want to go that far as to pass it on to Lori Miller, she's also out there. We need that input as we go into these meetings. And, this isn't the time or place for the discussion. But, and Mr. DeWitt, if you can just have an impromptu meeting with the neighbors in the parking lot, and, you guys can speak civilly and kind of define what those numbers are, we can move us ahead and find that acceptable place we need to be. So, okay, that's all I got on that one. Thank you all for coming out. And again, thank you for the input. We really appreciate it. That will get us to item 8C, and that is a plan review for landscape, lighting, and related plans submitted by Dave Doro of OC Holdings LLC on behalf of Komatsu for the outdoor paved storage on the area at the property at 10001 South Howell Avenue. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a review of the Komatsu outdoor storage area. Plan commissioners may recall that this was something that was reviewed earlier this year and granted a conditional use permit for the outdoor storage of crates only back in April. So we are here to review the associated landscaping, specifically screening and buffering, lighting, and the related for that outdoor storage area. So between that conditional use permit approval and now, there were a few site layout changes, mostly due to considerations for stormwater. So between what was approved, which is on the left, and what, excuse me, is being proposed tonight, which is on the right, you'll notice that there has been a stormwater pond. Initially, they were going to go underground, but that for financial considerations, they had to move above ground. This is not the only stormwater pond. There is going to be another 1.5, shall we say, on the southeast as well. And that's shown on the screen right here. There is kind of like a dry pond prior to the other pond. It's not going to function quite the same as the north one that we'll talk about. Landscaping changes between the approval of the conditional use permit and now. They had to change based on the fact that they now have above ground stormwater to contend with. And one thing to note about that buffer that is on the north, that berm, is actually on property owned by Milwaukee County. So the applicant would have to coordinate with Milwaukee County for any kind of extension or landscaping thereof. I don't anticipate that there would be too much of an issue there, but again, it's something that the applicant would have to coordinate. With regard to how that pond is situated and making sure that it's protected from the existing parking that's there, thank you. They are going to be enclosing that with a 6-foot tall perimeter fence.
There's also going to be 1 foot thick by 10 foot tall concrete walls with guardrail on portions surrounding this particular pond. I think it's only on maybe 1 or 2 sides though. And then they're going to be putting curb and gutter there. So there really is kind of a big grade change between that portion of the pond and the existing parking that they're hoping to contain here. And as for the landscaping around there, we've already talked about the extension of the berm and the buffer there. There were some changes to the landscaping south of the berm. They relocated some of those proposed trees. That will now provide more of a staggered buffer for the beginning of that outdoor storage area. No change to the arborvitae that are proposed inside the fence line on the southwest and south. And then some changes to the landscaping on that berm by the southeast pond. The lighting itself, there were a couple of places where they're proposing either changes to fixtures or new lights, and this is kind of giving you 2 visuals regarding what they're proposing to do. The applicant's consultants did contact me because the conditional use permit did limit the light temperature to 3,500 kelvins, and they're actually going to be going a little bit lower than that because the fixtures themselves are such that their maximum would be 3,000 and not 3,500. But just so you're aware, that is going to meet the requirement. And with regard to the screening of the outdoor storage area, basically the landscape plan calls for about 3 different types of plantings out there. Colorado spruce, which would be, I think they changed it to Norway spruce. Yes, they did. That, they're proposing along the north and in a little bit of a concentration by the south pond and then on the north side there. Those are proposed to be installed at a height of 10 to 12 feet. The arborvitae, which is the majority of the south portion that they're going to be using for screening, those would be installed at a height of 7 to 8 feet. Recall that the existing fence that's there is 6 feet tall, and the arborvitae are required by the conditional use permit to be installed and maintained at a minimum height of 7 feet, because that's where the maximum height of the storage crates would be. I believe there is a suggested motion for approval with that information in mind. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Is the applicant like to say anything before we go to commission, or you want to wait for questions, comments?
Well, I'd just like to point out.
You got to come on up, and we'll need the name and address and the whole 9 yards on record.
My name is Kevin Risch. I'm the project engineer for Dave Doral, the property owner. I live at 8308 47th Avenue, Kenosha, Wisconsin, 53142. Carrie did a great job of representing what we're proposing with regards to the ponds that's being modified on the, which would be on the right-hand side, lower right-hand side. I did have a conversation with Phil today. We have a general agreement that's no longer going to be a dry pond, and there's no longer going to be a bioswale there. We just couldn't make it work elevation-wise. The reason that there's 2 ponds being proposed here is the existing site has really no on-site detention other than what's on the east side of the property. And that's currently being used for their fire protection. And it's really the roof drainage. Everything else on site just leaves the site to the west. So in order to meet the ordinance, we're required to store everything that's leaving the site. So our ponds kept getting bigger and bigger. And right now we have a general consensus with Phil Beermeister in engineering. And we reconfigured that pond on the southeast corner, and now it's going to be a wet pond. It's pretty much in the same configuration, but it's going to be a wet pond. Everything else, as Carrie alluded to, the lighting fixtures, we're going to replace 7 of the dual head fixtures with the new fixtures. The existing fixtures are on site are all 5,000 Kelvin, and the lights that are available is 3,000 Kelvin. So we're going to take it one step further to help reduce some of the noise level of these lights. So any questions, I will be available.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. All right, we'll go to Commissioner Hannah.
I have no question, thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan.
I have no questions either. Thank you.
Commissioner Carrillo.
Nothing for me.
Alderman Laura.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Guzekowski.
No questions for me.
Commissioner O'Dani.
No questions.
Commissioner Seifert. Nothing. Commissioner Chandler.
No questions.
Okay. I have none myself. And again, if you went through it with Phil, I trust Phil. He's going to do the right thing. And again, it may seem a little overblown, but again, he's very serious about his craft, and I'm sure he's worked well with you. So I have no further comments or questions. I think it looks good, and I think it's going to look better than it was. So with that, motion, please.
Clerk moves that the Plan Commission approve site and building plans submitted by Dave Doro, OC Holdings LLC.
Alderman Lorik, I'm sorry to interrupt. Site and building plans, it's actually a typo. It should be site landscaping and lighting plans.
Okay. I will amend to move to approve site, lighting, and landscaping plans submitted by Dave Doro, OC Holdings LLC, on behalf of Komatsu for the property at 10001 South Howell Avenue with the following conditions. Number one, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. And number two, that all detailed revised plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call, and I'll begin. Bukevich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
Clark, aye. And just before we adjourn, I want to thank staff. Very, very good meeting. Not an easy meeting to get through. Obviously, we had a lot of things going on there and moving parts and pieces. But again, sorry to saddle you with all that work, but we will get it done and we'll figure it out. Thank you to IT. Always appreciate the effort. Carrie, thank you for the work. Great job by all. Again, I think all in all, it was a good, productive meeting. So we'll carry on with that. Dawn, anything on the farmer's market? We're in farmer's market season, so you get a plug.
I know. We're going to enter our third week at the farmer's market. The first 2 weeks have been extraordinary. So with sales, so please visit us. And this week we have all the crafters joining the market.
All right. Excellent. So with that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Carrillo moves to adjourn at 7:42.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, starting with Alderman Guzekowski.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
Clark, aye.
David, aye. Okay, all. We will see you 15th of July. 13th. And my calendar is bad these days. Anyways, okay. Everybody enjoy the holiday. And again, if you can get out to the farmer's market, it's been excellent going out there the last 2 weeks. Thank you.